Sonic has been unleashed on the PC. That's right, Sonic Unleashed, also known as Sonic World Adventure, has arrived sort of unofficially on the PC. It got its first native PC port, which is something that's very, very exciting to me. And also, even though he's not much of a Sonic fan, I think from a technology standpoint, it's also interesting to Alex Battaglia.
Yeah, this is amazing, John. I was wondering when this was happening. I heard about something moving in this direction a couple of months ago, and now we're seeing it in the flesh.
That's right. So the first thing to be excited about, obviously, for me, is that I think this is a pretty cool game. It has some flaws, of course, but there's good stuff here. But until now, it's been limited to the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3. There was also a Wii and PS2 version that is a completely different game, by the way, with its own engine and visual style. And obviously, you weren't going to do this on those platforms because this is one of the earlier examples of really high-quality pre-calculated global illumination in a real-time game, which there's a whole GDC presentation about this, which I recommend checking out. And it drastically altered the look of the game, and because it's such a bright, sunny game, it now means that when light sort of you get that illusion of light sort of bouncing in and around the crevices and filling in things, and you got like natural shadows everywhere, and it's awesome. And in addition to that, you have this beautiful post-effects suite. They did per pixel motion blur, there's depth of field, color grading, and more. I thought this game was absolutely stunning at the time.
Oh, yeah.
And I still think it looks great today.
Yeah, I loaded this up on my PC to be able to even comment about it with John, and I was immediately struck by how good looking this game still is. Kind of like, when you load up a Half-Life 2, due to its use of baked global illumination, you get also a similar sense of this is a bit more timeless than other games from its time period.
Exactly. Same with something like Mirror's Edge.
Mm-hmm. Precisely.
That was the same time when you started to see this sort of more experiments with advanced, though baked, lighting, as opposed to what was common that generation with just like the very hard, fully real-time lights, but like no real indirect lighting solution. Mm-hmm. So you just had that super dark, grimy look. So we're past that. And in the original version as well, it was stuck on those platforms. There was Xbox backwards compatibility support, but with FPS Boost, no less, but it was still limited to the 880 by 720 resolution, which all of this has been overcome with this recompilation project, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so this is something you actually covered one of these. I think it was the Zelda one.
Precisely.
The Majora's Mask one, right?
Yes. So basically the concept of a recompilation is that the code that was supposed to be running on the Xbox 360 as an executable, I think they're like .xex files or something like that instead of .exe, they're converted into C++ code, then they can be recompiled for any platform using something called Xenon Recomp. I think that's how you pronounce it. And then that would only cover like the game code and the stuff that's going to be running on the CPU. The graphics, though, obviously were very specific to Xbox 360, which was kind of, from a hardware level, something in between DX9 and DX10 with some special stuff that made it run quite a bit faster for the time period. And they're using something called Xenos Recomp, which converts 360 shader binaries into HLSL, and then that can be recompiled into other things such as DXIL and SPIRV for Vulkan, and using the DirectX shader compiler, because now that's a new feature actually of the DirectX shader compiler. So you can use it with DX12 and Vulkan. In the case here, I think it defaults maybe to DX12 on load.
I'm actually not 100% sure.
I'm actually not 100% sure either, but it does just default up into running completely fine on a modern PC when you load it up the first time. Exactly. There was nothing finicky about this, like going into, for example, like in an emulator where you'd maybe have to choose a renderer before it starts. You'd have to do all these things to, once again, reiterate it. The entire point of a recompilation is that it becomes essentially a native PC port of the game.
Exactly, and that's key here. But of course, these guys are not at liberty to distribute this game legally, right? And the recompilation project does not include Sega's code or assets or anything like that, really. So, in order to set this up, they've actually developed this very clever and cute installation process that I found really charming. I like this a lot. Essentially, you do need to get the original game data, so you need the original DVD files from the Xbox 360 version, because this is recompiled from the 360 game, not the PS3 game, but that won't matter, as we'll get to. You also need the title update, which is what they call the just regular update files for 360. And then you can also install the DLC. And it basically, when you set this up, and you saw this too, Alex, you basically go through this nice front-end menu system that resembles the game's own menu. And you sort of like connect the pieces of data, and it sort of lights up these little like icons here to denote that, hey, you have now installed this bit of data. And you just go through that process, and once it has all the data, it installs the game properly, extracts the data it needs, and then it boots up exactly like the original game. Which brings us to basically the first big new addition, the options menu. So obviously the key here is that resolution is now variable. You can do whatever you want. It supports things like ultra wide as well, both for cutscenes and gameplay, which is great. You can even adjust the position of the icons. The frame rate cap has been removed, though they do caution that there are some tiny glitches apparently running at a higher frame rate. I didn't notice anything personally myself, but that is possible. There is a color grading option separate. So the PS3 and 360 version had a slightly different look to it. There was like this like orangish filter they used on 360 to give it a warmer appearance. On PS3 that wasn't there, so it kind of had a brighter, like more blue hue to it. You can now choose, which is cool. Some people like one or the other. The option's now there. Shadow resolution can be massively boosted. It's insane how much of a difference this makes. Shadows are much, much sharper at the higher resolution. Also, the global illumination, the light maps and everything, they can now be filtered using bicubic filtering as opposed to normal bilinear, which makes them look significantly smoother. There's also, you can increase the number of samples in the motion blur or turn it off, though don't be a sicko and turn it off because it's good in this game.
It's good in this game. It's nice looking.
They also got the depth of field to scale properly to high resolutions, which is something that if you tried to emulate this game, it never really worked right at high res for that reason.
Yeah.
So that's actually really cool. You even get freaking transparency multi-sampling anti-aliasing. So MSAA is here and with transparency. So things like foliage, fences, and all those little like fiddly bits are super clean. So basically, like when you combine that with the fact that there's also like a resolution scaling slider. So I was able to run this with 4K, 200% scaling on the resolution, 4x MSAA with transparency multi-sampling, at 120 frames per second without a single hiccup. I mean, the image quality, you know, I do like TAA in the modern era. I think it is a good thing overall, especially with the way modern games work. But when you see something like this running at that resolution, that clarity, it just reminds you, like, dang, man, this image quality.
Yeah, it's crazy. I also, like you, I loaded it up at 4K, immediately adjusted everything to 8X, and was blown away. Another thing that I did was since I have a monitor that's capable of it with like the dual mode switch, I tried it out at 480 hertz as well, running out on 9800 X3D with a very powerful GPU. And the funny thing is, you can get the game pretty easily above 120 and even into the 240 FPS range on something like a 9800 X3D, but you start becoming CPU limited. I think for obvious reasons when you try and go up to 480 hertz. It's just a matter of even though the game's an Xbox 360 game, there's only so much you can do to fit everything into a 2 millisecond window. So like it's like between 250 and 480 and higher, depending upon what you're doing in the game. But it's still obviously extremely fast. Sonic goes fast, to say the least.
But so really, I mean, the big takeaway from all this, beyond like just the technical impressiveness of it all, is just, it's just, man, the game really holds up so well, visually speaking. And I also love how they implemented some very slight sort of like quality of life features in there. For instance, I think you were confused when I first wrote this, but the yes. Battle music in the Werehog stage can now be turned off. And it's like, wait, why would you want that? Well, in the original, so they have this awesome background music for the stages, but they would have a single battle song that would play every time you engage in combat. You engage in combat a lot. And so it was constantly ping-ponging between the stage music and the battle music. And it just gets old after a while. So being able to disable that is awesome, and it just makes the whole thing feel better to my ears anyway.
Yeah, I think that would bother me. It used to bother me in old JRPGs, actually, now that I think about it, so that's nice. Another thing that we didn't talk about is since it is actually running on low-level APIs here, the game would then have to manually take care of shader compilation, right? In this case, they're using an asynchronous shader compiler, much like an emulator would have, and just one thing to say, I did not notice any shader compilation woes while playing the game at all. At least for the first 35 minutes. Can't obviously imagine it would happen later on, but due to the way the system's set up. But this is not something you have to worry about. Like with some emulators, shader compilation can be a big pain. But since this isn't an emulator, they know everything up front and they can asynchronously compile them.
Exactly. And gosh, thinking about that's probably my first real understanding of what shader compilation stutter was back when I first got into Dolphin, like so many years ago, before they implemented all the modern stuff, right? The old version of Dolphin, you would get so much shader compilation stutter playing everything, and I was like, oh, this is awful. They have since addressed that, of course. So there's that kind of stuff that's been improved. I guess, one complaint we can level is that you can't skip cutscenes, which is annoying on a first playthrough if you've already seen them or you don't want to watch them.
Yeah, I was sitting there. I was like, I don't know much about Sonic lore, but I just want to play this game, and I couldn't skip through it. But it's a very of the era thing that only became like something you would see kind of later in the generation, I would say.
Exactly. So also loading times are improved significantly. They were already improved on the Xbox backwards compatibility version, but now they're even faster. They even implemented things like you can choose which version of the day-night cycle video you want.
Oh, yeah.
So basically the way the game works is once you get a certain way in, you have this world map, which is the globe behind the title screen. So when you continue your game, you just see the globe, you spin the globe, you choose where you want to go. You can go to the village and explore on foot, or essentially you can just go directly into a stage if you just want to play a stage, right? Which is cool. You can also spin the planet, changing the position of the sun, which determines whether it's day or night. But within the stages, if you're like actually in the village, you can hit these little sort of like hourglass things to swap between day and night instantly. So because it's not real-time lighting, they don't do it in real time. They actually have to load the night or the day map. On 360, they would have this sort of video cutscene of Sonic transforming into the Werehog, but on PS3, they just showed a spinning moon sun icon in the middle that would like spin around real fast and then zoom off screen, which is actually much faster. So like if you want that longer video, you can have it, but if you just want the quicker PS3 transition, you can use that as well.
Oh, that's very handy.
Which is cool. So they really did a good job of sort of implementing all the different sort of features between the two versions into this, which is cool as well. And yeah, the PS3 version of this game is also kind of weird in that, for whatever reason, if I recall, they run with an uncapped frame rate.
Oh.
So, but we're talking, this was a 30 FPS game, not a 60 FPS game on the consoles, and the triple ain't doing 60 FPS in this game. So you often ended up, when it's running smooth, you're often like just above 30.
Oh my
goodness.
And
it's like, why would you do that? Like, why? Like, just lock it at 30. It just makes it feel less smooth than it should have because of that.
So many bizarre decisions in that generation.
I hate that stuff.
Yeah, but I guess one of the other things that I'm really happy about with this project is, beyond the game itself being ported, is that the developers behind this have also made it so that the tools they've used to handle the recompilation process have been kind of open source to other people to use. And this potentially means in the future that we'll be seeing, kind of like with the Nintendo 64 recompilation tools, that we'll be seeing more native PC ports of games that were previously either exclusives to Xbox 360 or had PC versions that weren't so great, and the Xbox 360 version might actually be something that would be better to be ported to PC. So there's tons of games where I'm just like really like the Xbox 360 catalog, and they're kind of stuck on the console, and it'd be amazing to see them finally come to PC.
Let me just put one out there. If anybody from this development team is watching, or somebody that wants to tackle this, Project Gotham Racing, guys. 3
Oh
or
my
4,
God, that's
doesn't
like
matter.
perfect.
Do it. It's still stuck on 360. It never got backwards compatibility support, and it never will.
Yeah.
These games are amazing. They're legendary.
Still 30
very good.
FPS too, right? Like
30 FPS limited. PGR3 itself is only 1024 by 720, I think, something like that, or 648. I guess it's like 1024 by 648. PGR4 went up to full 720p, but still, these would be awesome as native PC versions.
Oh my God, I would
if
kill.
possible.
Yeah,
So-
honor the legacy of Bizarre Creations, please. Someone.
Exactly. In the wake of them being, yeah, like the things that Bobby Kotick said about them.
Oh yeah,
we
reprehensible,
need
man.
this justice. But anyway, that's pretty much it. And hopefully you've enjoyed seeing the game running here and just appreciating like how beautiful this still is today. And yeah, if you have a copy of this lying around, be sure to give it a shot. But thanks for joining me on this one, Alex.
Anytime there, John.
And hopefully you guys all enjoyed it, and we'll see you next time.